Grand Rising. How you doing? This is Coach Renz, and welcome to the show. Uh, just getting started here in our Leviticus today, Leviticus 22 and 23. As you know, if you're following this for the first time, we are a channel that deconstructs religion, but also we work to find our own path, our spirituality, in whatever form or fashion that takes hold of us. Usually start around 10 o'clock, a little bit behind the day, had to take care of some family business. But, I want to try a new location around the house. That's why we outside in the backyard. But, whoo, there's a lot of steps. There's a lot of steps to get down here. I tell you. Well, I hope you guys are having a great day, great morning, good start to your day. Always shout out where you at. Of course, I'm just trimming it up a little bit, getting a few things handled before get started. Give 5 minutes for people to get on for us to begin our conversation. It's going to be interesting dealing with the different lighting, where I guess in the morning, see, I would have to rearrange everything and be over there because the sun is over there and it's going to move southward that way. So by the time we finish, it'll be like right over there. So lighting is going to change as we go. Keeping it 100, James. That's what's up. So we're gonna see. That's a good part of this. Yeah. Gotta make sure you're sitting in the right spot. All right. Did anybody from the views on here yesterday? You know, we had a great conversation. It was supposed to be about the moon. Wound up talking about the different abnormalities that the moon shows us, demonstrates to us. Is it real? Is it fake? We went from there, talking about people having their own side conversations about flat earth and all kind of stuff. But that's just the way we do it. We have a tendency to start one place, end up 5 places else. I'm sure that now this is the only one that we definitely stick with the reading first, and then we move on to something. We talk about other things later. Cowboy, what's up, man? Grand Rising, Angelina. Now you know why I started late. It took a minute to get out here. It was a nice brisk morning this morning. I said, you know what? It's probably nice and decent. There's no mosquitoes out. Let me go outside today and see how see if the Wi-Fi will. The range is fine, but the range is fine. Actually, the range is too dang far. I can go outside of my yard and still get Wi-Fi, and that's not good. So, decided to be outside today. A little air. I'm actually glad that I started late because there was some people down there getting their lawn work done. It was loud as all get out back here. I was like, come on, man. And all that. So we out here today. And in about a minute, we're going to start with our Leviticus 22 and 23. These 2 chapters not all that exciting, but we're gonna do it. Oh, this is Big Boy's signature. This is the signature. Big Boy's signature. It's a Dominican Puro. For those who don't know what that means, it means it's a cigar is made of 3 main parts: the filler, the binder, and the wrapper. So Puro is when the filler, the binder, and the wrapper are all from the same country. So this is a Dominican Puro. Big Boys is a up and coming brand. They got their own factory down in the DR. You know, it's a local brother here. He always in the DR. Oh, he just came back. I need to call him anyway. Thank you for reminding me. Oh. Good notes of coffee and earth. Good rich tobacco. which I do need to spend more time working on my cigar channel. That would be a whole conversation on the cigar channel. Mm. I wish I hadn't started this one, because I could have did this one on the cigar channel after I finish this. I could put it down. It's not like I don't have another one sitting right next to me, because I plan on being out here for a while. But then that's just gonna sit. Oh well, it's gonna get smoked. All right, good people. All right, James. I appreciate that. Good people, good people, good people. We are going to get started. I wonder. Hold on. Hold the phone. I wonder, is there a way? I gotta figure this whole thing out with the whatever this program is called, SteamYard. It would be cool if this other window. I know I can share the thing, my screen. That's not necessarily how I want to do this. Let me try something real quick before we do this. Just curious. It's not necessarily working out the way I wanted it to, but at least y'all can. I wanted it bigger. This way you'll be able to see what I'm reading for the most part, right? All right, this will work for now. Until I get better at it. Grand Rising, David, how you doing? All right, so we're in 22. We just went over last week where we saw how, even though somebody did make a good point, there are other parts of this book that speaks on fathers not having sex with their daughters, where it just simply has a blanket covering of saying, don't sleep with any of your close relatives. I just found it odd that even though it has that blanket statement, it went through the whole process of individually naming these different groups that you shouldn't, these different combinations, but yet it didn't name the father and the daughter. You would think that if it's important enough to name not sleeping with your father's wife, not sleeping with your aunt, not sleeping with all these other people, that it would have at least went ahead, it would have named that as well. But that one it just didn't name. But it does. There is a catch-all, and that's fine. It's just not good enough to me. So now this 22 is going to talk about these priests and a lot of it's going to sound repetitive because it's things that it's already said before. Y'all let me know how well this sounds, because I didn't pull the other table up so that the microphone is closer. So let me know if the sound is good on whichever program platform you're on, because this is also whether or not I do this outside often. is going to be based on my ability to be comfortable. Because if I got to sit up like this the whole time, that's going to be a problem. We're not doing that. But if I can lean back from time to time, or especially when I'm reading so that I can see better, I'm going to need that. All right. Oh, let's get started. So the Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons to treat with respect the sacred offerings the Israelites consecrate to me, so they will not profane my holy name. I am the Lord." So we know egotistical God. You know he's going to come in with his "I am the Lord" shit. He's going to be very prominent in this one. Say to them, for the generations to come, if any of your descendants is ceremonially unclean and yet comes near the sacred offerings that the Israelites consecrate to the Lord, that person must be cut off from the presence, cut off from my presence. I am the Lord. I just find it so odd that this deity has different punishments for different things, and the severity of them. So if you are a priest, and this is for the priests, if you are a priest of Aaron in the lineage of Aaron, and you come to touch the sacrifice and you're unclean, then you're cut off, like you're excommunicated right off the whip. This is not for other people, this is just for them. Although we do know in previous chapters it does say a person has to be sent out and then they go through a whole ceremony and all this kind of stuff. Now this is just you cut off. You cut off. Grand Rising Norman. Grand Rising Willie. And that is a good point. That's why when people say these deities are not the same. I mean, when people say the deity written that Jesus writes about and the deity of the Old Testament are two different people. Willie made the point. He said, Coach, Jesus did the opposite and reversed these punishments and curses with healing and miracles. I wouldn't say that he reversed them. I would say that he was saying, you know, y'all caught up with the wrong ideas. Y'all got the wrong guy. Y'all worshiping somebody else. That's why he told, you know, them Pharisees that they worship a father of lies, the devil. I think if you accept that you don't have to accept that Jesus existed to accept some of the wisdom that's within it. There is some wisdom. There's wisdom in the book, no doubt. Wouldn't work if there was none. But you have to recognize that this Jesus character is talking about a different deity than what the Old Testament deity is referring to. You know, I was hoping to come out here and there'd not be any mosquitoes. You know, oh, if y'all got a Buc-ee's near y'all, this dang on spray right here, it's all natural, works great. But yes, so now see, Willie, you went too far. Yahweh gave leprosy, paralysis, blindness, and death. Jesus cured those things. No, we still got those things with us, my guy. He ain't cure them. And there's people who believe in this Jesus and go to their deathbed and they still got it. He didn't cure you. With you. I was with you. I was with you. Then you went too far. Ugh. But I never expect any two people to ever agree on anything fully. So let's continue. If a descendant of Aaron has a defiling skin disease or bodily discharge, he may not eat the sacred offering until he is clean. He will also be unclean if he touches something defiled by a corpse, or anyone who has emissions of semen. It does say that, y'all see it. Or if he touches any crawling thing that makes him unclean, or any person who makes him unclean, whatever the uncleanliness may be. The one who touches any such things will be unclean till evening. He must not eat any of these sacred offerings unless he has bathed himself with water. When the sun goes down, he will be clean, and after that he may eat the sacred offering, for they are his food. He must not eat anything found dead or torn by wild animals, and so become unclean through it. I am the Lord. So, I mean, it's pretty much straightforward, but it's pretty much things that this book has already said. It's like they got to keep, you got to fill some space in there. Sorry, but my ankles ain't covered up with the spray. I hope I wasn't gonna have to do it. But anyway, so and this is these priests, they're not able to farm and keep land because the priests are supposed to be taking care of the people and taking care of this deity's house. So this is how they take care of themselves. They're able to eat some of the sacred food. If they unclean or anything like that, then they can't eat it. But if you got a defiling skin disease, these things can last. You got to remember, a defiling skin disease can last 7 days, can last 14 days, a month, a year. So they are not, they can't eat the sacred food. Now they'll be able to eat some food out in the leper colony, things of that nature, but they just can't go out into and eat on this. Uh, this would mean that, like, if people are actually still following this, when a pastor has, a boil on his face or on his body, he's not supposed to be pastoring during that time frame. He's not supposed to be in the church and all this sort of thing. You can see why people are not going to continue to follow these types of rituals, because it becomes more of a nuisance of life. Now, one thing I want to point out, though, that these same type of rules, that if you go and you study and look up and study Moloch, the Baal, the way that you worship Baal and all these other deities in that area at this time, they all had these same requirements that we're going through here. So this is nothing more than a simple transfer and sharing of the same types of worship. I was just thinking about how pastors try to get back people that left religion. It's almost looks like psychological attack. Yeah, well, they're losing money, so they got to get people back in there. They say they can say they're trying to save people, but they're losing money. That's the reality of it. They make you feel guilty and also sad because same stories about someone who left religion earlier and something bad happened to them, and later they got back to religion. Something bad happens to Christians while they're in the religion, when they never leave the religion. How many Christians have cancer? How many Christians are in car wrecks? How many Christians get murdered? How many Christians get robbed? How many Christians lose their houses? Um, this is why we do. This is why I do this. This, and especially this class in particular, on Tuesdays, because we have to become stronger and recognize what life is, how the universe is actually working, and what life is going on. I know I'm coming away from what we actually talk about. And normally I stay on track while we're doing this part of it, but that's just such an important thing. The same way that a pastor would take somebody who's not believing in this deity and then they'll go to the jailhouses and they'll preach to them and they'll tell them that you've been experiencing these things because you lack the love of God in your life, or God's trying to get your attention. The Muslims can do the exact same thing. But life happens. Life happens to everybody. And life is going to continue to happen to everybody on different scales, different ways. Your perspective of how you relate to that life is what's going to make the difference. I was just thinking this morning, or last night and this morning, about the fact that if you really look at your life, look at it decade for decade for decade, For the most part, we repeat the same 10, 20 years over and over again. And in repeating those same 10, 20 years, we're not breaking the cycle. And I was contemplating that concerning reincarnation. Like, people like to say that they were this and they were that, and maybe you were. But the thing about it is that you've probably still repeated the same cycle in every life that you've ever lived. And in order to break that cycle, you got to break from the same things that you've been doing, the same inner core things. Like, if you were an unhappy, miserable person, or if you were a person consistently had failed relationship, you could have been a rich person with a bunch of failed relationship. You could have been a poor person with a bunch of failed relationship. A priest with a bunch of failed relationship. An atheist with a bunch of failed. But that failed relationship thing is a consistency because you never truly learn lifetime after lifetime how to have sacrificial love for other people. And then also how to love yourself well enough that you choose correctly for yourself to make the sacrificial love for other people easier. Like, there's a whole thought process that I was going through with that one. I'm not going to do it right now. But that perspective of how we live and things that happens to us is not about what God you believe in. Because suffering is going on with every person in every religion. Just like joy and happiness is going on with every person in every religion. So your experience is not dictated by what religion you belong to. Somebody right now just got murdered. Matter of fact, 1,000 people probably just got murdered right now. And they are of every religion. There are Muslims who just got murdered right now, Christians who just got murdered right now, Buddhists, Hindu, Ifa, Hebrew Israelite, every of 1,000, it could be 500 different variations of a religion. And right at that moment ago, that 15 seconds ago, 1,000 people were murdered. The religion didn't matter. Still murdered. So when they're trying to convince you that the religion matters for what happens in your life, what matters that happens in your life is really you. You're what matters. You actually are the causation of the majority of things in your life. And sometimes you're the causation because you allow other people's causation to supersede your own. But let me get back to the text. There's a beautiful cardinal over there. See, this is the problem with me being outside, actually. There's a cardinal over there, all red and everything. I know y'all made some comments, and I just wouldn't be a good story without a hero. You're right. How to make them leave you alone? Don't talk to them. Just stop talking to them. Just politely walk away. Of course they are. You're weakest at. You're more susceptible to anything when you are going through some stuff. So that's when they can get you. Hold that question for later, Willie, but I got you. Now, if I don't remember, you remind me. All right, so let's continue. Let's continue. The priests are to perform my services in such a way that they do not become guilty or die for treating it with contempt. I am the Lord who makes them holy. Yeah, I got to stop right there again. I know we just got started with the reading again. I want you to contemplate something for a minute. Everybody here on here either has a job or had a job, or you've been on a job before. Could you imagine that if the your efficiency of your job, based on the efficiency of your job, decided whether you lived or died? All right, Adam. Um, Brian, I should say. all win Brian. This joker just said, you better perform these services correctly. Because if you don't, you're going to die. That's harsh. That's harsher than any human I know. I don't know any human that's that harsh about your efficiency of doing the work. But hey, I ain't say it. This deity said it. To continue, no one outside a priest's family may eat the sacred offering, nor may the guest of a priest or his hired workers eat it. So only the priest and his family. But if a priest buys a slave with money, or if the slaves are born in his household, they may eat his food. Right? So at least the slaves can eat it. If a priest, again, when they say that this Bible does not support slavery, if a priest buys a slave with money, or if slaves are born in his household, meaning he's uh, breeding slaves. Tell me again how this book don't support slavery. If the priest's daughter marries anyone other than a priest, she may not eat of the sacred contribution. So, and you know they did trade a lot of priest daughters. They went back and forth and kept marrying priests. And mind you, these are supposed to be Aaron's descendants. So you have a daughter. That daughter needs to marry another priest, and those priests can only be the males from Aaron. So she's marrying a cousin at minimum. You got to keep that incestuous bloodline going. But she may not eat if she marries somebody else. But if a priest's daughter becomes a widow or is divorced, yet has no children, and she returns to live in her father's household, as in her youth, she may eat her father's food. No unauthorized person, however, may eat it. So basically, if you get widowed and you don't have any children, then you can come back. And this is more about the fact that women couldn't own property, women couldn't gain inheritances. If she had some sons, then the sons would be able to have the inheritance, and then the sons would take care of the mother. But if she's just a widow with no children, then there's nobody to take care of her because she can't own the property. She don't own the herds. She don't own any of those things. It would actually go either all of the possessions of that male would go back to his family, whether it's a brother or a father, whoever the eldest that's still alive. So she gets nothing out the deal. So, ladies, I want you to think about that. This book is basically saying the reason why you would go back to your husband is because, your father, or you would stay with your sons because you don't have the right to own anything during the time frame this book is being written. And that was true of the culture, and it's reiterated here as far as the priesthood is concerned. But this is how things work in this book, period. Yeah. I don't think Brian doing that. So yeah, but 14. Anyone who eats a sacred offering by mistake must make restitution to the priest for the offering and add a fifth of the value to it. The priest must not desecrate. Yeah, the priest must not desecrate the sacred offerings the Israelites present to the Lord by allowing them to eat the sacrifice offering and so bring upon them guilt requiring payment. I am the Lord who makes them holy. It's pretty straightforward. At least he had a little bit of sentimental thing like, hey, priest, be mindful of it. Don't try to use this as a way to enrich yourselves by letting people eat it. And it's like, oh, you ate the sacred sacrifice. You gotta give me some more money. A fifth more on top of the value, little interest. Even though this book talks about there's no usury, it slips it in there every now and then. It gets a little interest in there every now and then. Then the Lord said to Moses, speak to Aaron and his sons and to all the Israelites and say to them, If any of you, whether an Israelite or a foreigner residing in Israel, presents a gift for a burnt offering to the Lord, either to fulfill a vow or free will offering, you must present a male without defect from the cattle, sheep, or goat, in order that it may be accepted on your behalf. Do not bring anything with a defect, because it will not be accepted on your behalf. When anyone brings from the herd or flock a fellowship offering to the Lord to fulfill a special vow or a freewill offering, it must not be without defect or blemish to be accepted. Do not offer to the Lord a blind, the blind, the injured, or the maimed, or anything with warts or festering or running sores. Do not place any of these on the altar as a food offering presented to the Lord. You may, however, present a free offering offering an ox or a sheep that is deformed or stunted, but it will not be accepted to fulfill a vow. You must not offer the Lord an animal whose testicles are bruised, crushed, torn, or cut. You must not do this in your own land, and you must not accept such animals from the hands of foreigners and offer them as food to your God. They will not be accepted on your behalf because they are deformed and have defects. Who made the defective animals? This bougie bourgeoisie God. Now, of course, a Christian would say animals had no defects until Eve ate the fruit and sin entered the world, and then that's when the defects came into the world. That would be the Christian excuse. But still, all things created were created by this deity. Even sin is created by this deity. So therefore, who made the ox with the crushed balls? And this book does have a uh, over. They're overly interested in crushed balls. Um, I left that window open. In crushed balls and stuff. But hey, uh, this this bougie bastard, it's like his animals got to be perfect. He want that 5-star dining. Don't bring him, and he gets worse. He's gonna get a little. He's gonna be a little sadistic in a minute. Definitely on one part. But don't bring him no bullshit. He want that prime cut, and not that stew meat. That prime cut. Oh, and if you're a defective person, Denise, you can't come up there. You're not part. You can't enter if you got deformities or um, you leaking semen. So a dude leaking semen or got sores and you touched unclean stuff, you can't come with it. But if a defective person, no, you can't. Actually, I think it's going to get specific about that too. I think about Aaron's relatives who may be defective. Let's continue to find out. The Lord said to Moses, when a calf, oh, this shit is cruel right here. The Lord said to Moses, when a calf, a lamb, or a goat is born, it is to remain with its mother for 7 days. From the 8th day on, it will be accepted as food offering presented to the Lord. Do not slaughter a cow or a sheep and its young in the same day. Two things. Why does it matter if you're sacrificing it in the same day? What? Does this God act like he cares about these animals' emotions? Yet you're slaughtering the shit out of these animals. So why do you care about their emotions that, oh, it can't be done on the same day? But it's also cruelty. Oh, you can be the little baby calf is with his mama and everything, and then you're gonna snatch him away and go slaughter a little baby calf. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, that young calf meat. I forgot what they call that when they serve you up with some young calf or lamb. Uh, but you're gonna serve them up, and this ain't even serving it up, and you really get to eat it. Certain offerings are not even eaten; it's like completely burned, so it's charred beyond beyond the point where you can eat it. But then some people are going to say that this was a metaphor. This is a metaphor about how Jesus was born in Bethlehem, and this is a custom that they do, Israeli, a Hebrew custom. He was born in Bethlehem. He was in the manger for 7 days because they were considered unclean, and on the eighth day they were clean. And then he was taken to the synagogue so he can be circumcised and dedicated to Yahweh. Uh, they'll say that this is why. This is like a analogy, an allegory for that, and that is what they do. Except he's circumcising is vastly different from slaughtering. Vastly different. To continue, when you sacrifice a thank offering to the Lord, sacrifice it in such a way that it will be accepted on your behalf. It must be eaten the same day. Leave none of it till morning. I am the Lord. Veal, thank you, Angelina. Now, this one, and once you make a sacrifice, it has to be consumed that same day. You can't have any leftovers. Uh, I find this one interesting because when you study Ifa, Voodoo, Santa Marta, that one say no, not Santa Marta. It's another one that's kind of like a mixture of Ifa and Voodoo. Can't think of what it is. It's Caribbean. But anyway, those West African religions like that, they have a similar thing where the sacrificed animal has to be consumed that same day. So there is a similarity here where people who weren't even connected to each other they still have some of the same thing. So he's promoting gluttony. Uh-huh. But it has to be eaten the same day. And like when you do a sacrifice in Ifa, if it's not gone by that day, like you're supposed to eat portion of it, the other portion is left outside for whoever your orisha is. If it's gone the next day, then that means the odu was accepted. So in the same sense, you got to eat it all so that it can be accepted. If it's not, then there's a problem. Leave it outside, just some animals gonna come. If I put some stuff out here, pretty sure between the cats, they're gonna come. My friend Larry ain't coming around yet. It ain't got cold enough for Larry. Last winter, it had this possum kept coming through the backyard. His name Larry. Anyway, for my foolishness. Same day. All right, listen. Okay, that's gonna be the end of it. 29. When you sacrifice your thank offering to the Lord, sacrifice it in such a way that it will be accepted on your behalf. Oh, you must eat on the same day, leaving none until morning. I am the Lord. Sorry about that. Keep my commandments and follow them. I am the Lord. Do not profane my holy name, for I must be acknowledged as holy by the Israelites. I am the Lord. I am the Lord who made you holy and who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I am the Lord. Now, of course, you got to remind them. You got to remind them who he is and what he did. Like I brought you all about Egypt. I'm the Lord. But when you look at the writing and how it's written, the language itself, for that last part, uh, he's saying to keep my commandments, so I am the Lord. He's reminding them that I am your deity because people respected and worshiped other deities during this time frame. He said, do not profane my holy name, for I must be acknowledged as holy by all Israelites. The people got to believe in me. They have to believe in me. If they don't believe in me, there's a problem. And I have to be defined as holy by the Israelites because these are the people that I'm choosing to worship me. You know, Ilnana got her people. It's Baal got their people. Everybody else got their chosen. It reminds me of how Anu said, okay, we're going to stop meddling. We're going to divide up earth. Kind of like how they had the African scramble. We're going to divide up earth. So everybody gets their own people that they're going to rule over, city states basically. And y'all rule over those city states. And like Marduk becomes the god of this area. Baal, this area. What a same damn person. But Enlil this over here, Elnan over here, and then Harsag is over here. Uh, Inky is over there. So everybody got their part, and it's like this is similar to everybody getting their part, and he's trying to, and he's establishing it. Like, I am the Lord who made you holy. I brought you out of Egypt. Because I want you guys to be my people, and he's only talking about them. So when the Hebrew Israelites are saying that he's only talking about a certain group of people, yeah, you're right, he is. They don't talk about a certain group of people. It's later on when you get to Jesus, because the Romans took over, that they want to include other people and be inclusive. Because as far as the Old Testament is concerned, there is no inclusiveness. You are all, it is just for these people. That's it. And all their rules are just for them. Sounds like a jealous man indeed. No, Larry Larry came by. Larry better not come by. I don't like Larry. Larry be trying to get close to the fire pit. All right, hold on to that, Brian, until we finish chapter 23, and then we can go. We talk about anything at that point. All right, so hold on to those thoughts. Now, right now, we try to stay into on Tuesday. We stay in the reading, the subject matter, and then we go off. I went off that one time for that, because that was a point I wanted to hit, but we can uh, go later after I finish this chapter. Or just check and see if anybody said anything about what we're talking about. These guys and these are ancient civilizations. Could actually be an ancient corporation and businesses. Notice how we adopt the same principles for Social Security number, stick and stuff. But yeah, it is. It's very similar to that in how the Sumerian story talks about how they broke up the world, of the known world to them, for different people to rule over. And that's how we are today with our different nations. So let's hit 23 so we can continue. We're going to talk about some festivals. Party time, party time. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, these are my appointed festivals, the appointed festivals for the Lord, which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies. The Sabbath. There are 6 days when you may work, but the seventh day is a day of the Sabbath. Rest, a day of sacred assembly. You are not to do any work wherever you live. It is the Sabbath to the Lord." He's already said this before, but he's got to make sure that what's important to him is your worship and your obedience. So you got to make sure that slave mentality is there, and the only way you do that is to constantly remind somebody. These are the Lord's appointed festivals. The sacred assembly you are, uh, the sacred assembly you are to proclaim at their appointed times. The Lord's Passover begins at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. On the 15th day of that month, the Lord's festival of unleavened bread begins. For 7 days, you must eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. For 7 days, present a food offering to the Lord. And on the seventh day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. That could have been a real short paragraph. A couple of lines, you could have got the same stuff in there. Same stuff in there. All right. The Lord said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I'm going to give you, and you reap its harvest, bring the priest, bring the priest a sheaf of the first grain of your harvest. He is to wave the sheaf before the Lord, so that it will be accepted on your behalf. The priest is to wave it on the day after the Sabbath. On the day you wave the sheaf, You must sacrifice a burnt offering to the Lord, a lamb a year without defect. Can't have no defects. Together with its grain offering and two tenths of an ephah of the finest mixed flour and mixed flour mixed with olive oil, a food offering presented to the Lord is a pleasing aroma. And we go back anthropomorphizing this God and giving him like human qualities because he likes his barbecue. If it's a drink offering of a quarter of a hin of wine, that's about a liter. That's about a liter of wine. You must not eat any bread or or roasted or new grain until the very day you bring this offering to the Lord, to God. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. That's a whole lot of liquor. That's a lot of liquor. A liter? Ain't that about as big as a big 40 ounce? That's about a big 40 ounce, ain't it? That's a lot of liquor. Uh, so, it gives you the time frame that you're supposed to have these festivals and what you're supposed to eat, the unleavened bread. And this is supposed to be done consistently. You're supposed to always do this. Um, but you're right, Will. All these things these are rules that are all created by man. I mean, the whole thing is created by man, in my opinion. You insert wisdom in there to make people believe it, but this is man-made. Man-made control mechanisms. Okay, so to continue. From the day after the Sabbath, the day you brought a sheaf of the wave offering, count off 7 full weeks. This is some dumb stuff right here. Now, and how you can't just say, look in on the 10th of the next month or the 10th of 3 months from now, whatever the month is 3 months later, on the 10th of that's when you do this thing. But we got to do some stupid count offs. So from the day of the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the waving offering, count off 7 full weeks. Count off 50 days up to the day after the 7th Sabbath, and then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. Why couldn't you just say on July 3rd? That's all you could say. July 3rd, we good. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves made of 20 tenths of an ephah of the finest flour, baked with yeast. Ooh, finally get some yeast back. As a wave offering of first fruits to the Lord. Present with this bread seven male lambs. Seven male lambs. Grand Rising Lashonda. 7 male lambs. God dang. That's a lot of slaughtering. Each a year old, can only be a year old and without defect. 1 young bull and 2 rams. Then they would be burnt offerings to the Lord together with their grain offering and drink offering, a food offering, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. And remember, these offerings were initially created because the Sumerians and some of these other people talked about how their deities lived amongst them, so they were literally feeding their deity. Once the deities were no longer living amongst them for whatever reason, the previous civilizations, whatever they were, they continued to do this and believe that through the smoke, these deities were able to consume this food or this and pouring the drink on the ground. So through the earth, they consume the drink offering. And then a certain amount of it is eaten by the priest, and through the priest, they are able to consume and eat. So that was the swerve they put on the people in order to continue this aristocracy of priesthood. Swear by the cream to the Lord. Then sacrifice 1 male goat for a sin offering and 2 lambs, each a year old, for a fellowship offering. The priest is to wave the 2 lambs before the Lord as a wave offering, together with the bread and the first fruits. They are a sacrifice offering to the Lord for the priest. At least he didn't get into, because we know from previous chapters, When he's saying that they're waving the two lambs, we know there are certain body parts of these lambs that they're waving in the air. So this is not a clean, like they picking up a lamb, and no, this is like uh, the breast of the lamb that they're waving in the air. It's all bloodied up and stuff. So it's not a cute sight. This ain't pretty. Uh, Three stopping two lambs. Virtual wait. Okay. On that same day, you are to proclaim a sacred assembly and do no regular work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for generations to come wherever you live. And it keeps saying that, which demonstrates again how Jesus cannot have been talking about the same God, because this guy, or if he is, this guy lied, or Jesus, he's contradicting himself. He's changed his mind, so he's not the same. So he's more human, because this is supposed to be a lasting ordinance. Nothing is supposed to change this. So the fact that Jesus is used as an excuse to change this just shows you that this is not the same God, and that really the change happened because culture changed. It ain't got really nothing to do with this book. But when you reap the harvest of your hold on. How do we get morale from an immoral God? You don't. This is all written by man and is based on the morality of the people during this time frame of the writing. And it's not even really this time frame. It's around the 500s BCE. All right. So when you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap the very edges of your fields or gather the gleaning of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for foreigners residing among you. I am the Lord your God. You notice I put poor and foreigner people are all in the same category, because these people are really supposed to be about themselves and enriching themselves and not the other people around them. Like, if I can do good business with somebody, I'm not supposed to enrich, you know. Sorry. He has stuff behind me like that. Like my neighbor over here, they're Arabs. So I'm not supposed to enrich them. We ain't supposed to be working together. If I was Hebrew, I ain't supposed to be enriching them. I'm supposed to enrich me. But this gleaming, the gleaming and the edges of your outer layers of your crops are usually the worst part. It's the worst. So it's no wonder that when these churches go to feed people, the homeless people, they think that these homeless people should be astoundingly excited and happy about the bland ass bologna sandwiches that they are always bringing to them. You know, uh, and I know some people, they like, well, we want to stretch the money out as far as we can make it stretch. But you're basically following this rule when you're saying that we're going to give poor people the worst that we could possibly give them. We want to give the homeless people the worst that we can possibly give him, not the best. But that mentality is right here. Leave for the poor people the worst of your stuff, the stuff that you really don't want. You know, it's kind of like in a cigar game. Unless you come to the table or you got a hookup. See, like when I had my cigar blended, my cigar I got it's hooked up. So I got good leaves. I got B quality leaves. You got to come to the table with a whole bunch of money to get A quality leaves. But when you see most people who got a cigar out and they don't own a factory nor a farm, or they didn't come to the table with $200,000 at minimum, they get this, they get the B minus or the C plus leaves. You don't get the good stuff. You don't have the A plus leaves. That's for the ones who own the farms, and they don't sell that off. And basically, this deity is doing the same thing. You know, it's right here. Give the poor people your worst. Give them your worst stuff that you wouldn't want. But oh well. Like Denise said, how do we get more moral from? How do we get more morale How do we get moral from an immoral God? Where am I? Right there. Let me scroll it down though. The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the first day of the 11th month, you are to have a day of Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly commemorating with trumpet blast. Do no regular work, but present a food offering to the Lord. You know, it just seems like the Sabbath is just, he don't want you to do any work, but he wants you to work in worshiping him. He wants you to do all the work to worship that joker, but don't do any of your work. Don't do anything for yourself. That's why I can't understand, you know, you work 5 days a week, you have one day off, and then you spend all day in church on Sunday. Hell no. The Lord said to Moses, the 10th day of the 7th month is a day of atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves, and present a food offering to the Lord. Do so. Do not do any work on that day, because it is a day of atonement. When atonement is made for you before the Lord your God, those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. So no pum pum on that day. If you get some, cut off from the people. I will destroy, and that's actually what he's talking about. He's talking about getting it. That's a day nobody is, you know, everybody's gonna be a day of atonement, baby. I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. He didn't say that he gonna cut you off. You're gonna be unclean. I will destroy from among their people anyone who does work on that day. This is he's a little bipolar with this stuff, and I hate to say that because that's disrespectful to bipolar how messed up this God is. You know, but he gonna destroy him. You should not do it. You should do no work at all. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. It is a day of Sabbath rest for you, and you must deny yourselves from the evening of the ninth day to the morning. Ninth day of the month until the following evening. You are to observe your Sabbath. And you know, I know a lot of people. They on the Sabbath is their guaranteed day of getting some. But if it's the Day of Atonement, he's gonna destroy you for getting that poom poom. So the Lord said to Moses, as he keeps saying to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the 15th day of the 7th month, the Lord's festival of tabernacles begins, and it lasts for 7 days. The first day is a sacred assembly. Do no regular work. For 7 days, present food offerings to the Lord. And on the 8th day, hold a sacred assembly and present a food offering to the Lord. It is the closing special assembly. Do no regular work. You know, these ain't really festivals. This is just feeding this deity. That's it. It's all about this deity. It ain't about the people enjoying them. It ain't about family. It ain't about coming together. It's just all about you going to give this God praise. These, and if since you guys can see this is in quotation marks, so it means that this is more than likely added to this book. It wasn't originally text there. These are the Lord's appointed festivals which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies for bringing food offerings to the Lord, the burnt offering and the grain offering, sacrifices and drink offerings required for each day. These offerings are in addition to those for the Lord's Sabbath, and in addition to your gifts, whatever you have vowed, and all the free will offerings you give to the Lord. So, beginning with the 15th day of the 7th month, after you have gathered the crops of the land, celebrated the festival of the Lord for 7 days. The first day is a day of Sabbath rest. The 8th day also a day of Sabbath rest. On the first day, you are to take tabernacles from luxuriant trees, from palms, take branches from luxuriant trees, from palms, willows, and other leafy trees, and rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. Celebrate this as a festival to the Lord for 7 days each. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. Celebrate it in the seventh month. Live in temporary shelters for 7 days. That's some bullshit. I'm not living in a temporary shelter for 7 days while I go. I'm not going and not living in my house. So mind you got to do all this sacrificing, do no work, and live in temporary shelter for 7 days. I'm gonna tell you why he says that in a minute. All native born Israelites are to live as such in no such all native born Israelites are to live in such shelters. So your descendants will know that I had the Israelites live in temporary shelters when they brought them out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses announced this to the Israelites, the appointed festival for the Lord. All right. So in truth, prior to these Israelite people, when the Sumerians began with their agricultural society, and the Kemetic people in the Nile Delta had their agricultural society, they had harvest festivals. So these are pretty much harvest festivals um, that they picked up from those people. And during those festivals, they were jovial. You know, they had fun. It was like we finished a lot of work. It was hard work. So the festivals was to give the people a rest, give the Babylonians, the Sumerians, the Akkadians, they rested, the Kemetic people, they rested from the hard labor of receiving the bounty that they believed some deity gave to them. So this was their rest time frame from all of this. And they partied, right? And of course, religion gets all up in there and mixed in. And so you start giving things to these deities. But they partied hard. Uh, this whole thing of, living in temporary shelters is because when they would go out and they would work the fields, they wouldn't travel back to their primary house. They would stay out in the fields. Like you get way out there, like 4 hectares out, you're gonna stay. You have temporary shelters that you stayed in when you was out there, you know, harvesting your crops, and all your workers and everybody else was out there with you. So this is just taking those farming attributes and those historical farming attributes and making them centered on this deity, not for what it really was back in the day. Uh, so, anybody got any questions about any of that? Let me take that off the screen. So, you would have to like know about farming and know about the cults of the religions of Baal and Moloch and all these other ones to see through some of that stuff. But just the mere fact of all the slaughtering that's going on and the restrictions and the egotism of this deity is enough to stand on as to why you would walk away from this book. You've just finished a whole festival that's based on an agricultural festival, but you're trying to make it seem like it's about them coming out of Egypt when it's not really about them coming out of Egypt. And remember, and mind you, that this land that he's going to give to them, there's already people in this land that he said he was going to destroy. And then if you don't do your job right, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to destroy you, or I'm going to excommunicate you. You know, you get some poom poom on the Day of Atonement, then I'm going to kill you for getting poom poom on the Day of Atonement because it's supposed to be all about him and not about you and your family. There was nothing in there that was about family. And then this is supposed to be for generation to generation to generation. It's perpetual. He says this over and over again in Leviticus that this is perpetual for generation to generation. And yet the excuse is because culture changed. The real reason is because culture changed, but the excuse is because Jesus, they don't have to do these things anymore. And that's bullshit. Right? And all this unnecessary slaughtering of animals. I'm not a pure vegetarian vegan, but I don't think you should slaughter animals unnecessarily. If you're not going to eat it, don't slaughter it. If something is not good, I'd be ashamed to give it to someone. So I know we got some questions and statements out there. We can talk about anything at this point, which like we normally do. Uh, but yeah, if I'm gonna base your comment, Denise, on the previous one about the morals, if something is not good, then I'd be ashamed to give it to somebody as well. And they do say it's just the Old Testament, um, that it doesn't apply. But this book tells you to keep those laws. Like this, Jesus came and said that he came to fulfill to fulfill it, not abolish it. So he didn't abolish anything, but they'll say the fulfillment abolishes it. No, this fulfillment, if they truly understood what it's saying, is that it's a copy of Horace. That when you come to the judgment seat, he'll be there to advocate for you, and hopefully you get in. That's all it's really doing. It's not abolishing anything you're supposed to do here. Thank you, LaShonda. I appreciate that. Ooh, yep. That's why I left too. I studied, and then I had to leave. Say the God of the Bible needs a therapist. He is very emotional, very unbalanced. Let me see what, if I can go back a little bit here. Why do God needs a book? Why he sacrificed himself to himself to make him save people from himself? Right, he's the one pushing his deal. And they'll say that you have free will to choose, and he had to save himself, the ultimate sacrifice. He really sacrificed nothing. If you think about it, if you know the end result, that death is not real, that you're going to be sacrificed on this cross, but you're going to rise up in 3 days. What sacrifice are you making? Damn phone scared me for a second. I forgot it was right there. What sacrifice are you making? Really? You know? Um, if they came to me and said, Renz, you gotta go to prison for 3 days. You gotta go to jail. And you gotta eat the food that's in jail, which that would be torturous. You gotta eat the jail food, and you gotta live like them, live the same way they live for 3 days. But when you get out, damn, that would really be good because all your debt is cleared. All your debt, your debt cleared. You got 840 credit score, and and you get to be royalty. If you tell me that, mm-mm, big ass wasp came like right here. If you tell me that, am I truly making a sacrifice? That's not a sacrifice. Let me tell you what a sacrifice would be. Same situation. Sacrifice would be if my son, and I told my kids this, that if something like this happens, I'm not making this sacrifice. If my son just maliciously murders somebody, a sacrifice would be me saying, you know what? If they came and said, hey, your son, he will be wiped clean of this murder if you take on the sentencing of this murder, and he gets to go and live his life and be free. But you gotta go to prison for the rest of your life. That's a sacrifice. There's no out. So that's a sacrifice. Knowing that you're going into the grave for 3 days and then you're gonna come out and you the king. No, that's the heroes. That's part of what Louisa said earlier. That's the hero's journey. Oh, he suffered, but then at the end he prevails through. No, the true hero, the true sacrifice would have been stay dead, stay in hell, because you are constantly receiving the sins of man at a constant rate that you can never leave hell. That's a sacrifice. You're constantly in torment. That's a sacrifice. If I was writing this story, Jesus would have never rose. No. Jesus would have stayed in hell. And as we sin today, those sins are going down and continues to be torment. So then the emotional part that I would put on humans is every time you sin, you're making it worse for Jesus. So stop, so cease your sinning so that it won't be worse for this person who took this sacrifice. Because that would be, because otherwise it's like saying my son, hey, if he murders more people while he's out here, I'm taking on all his sentencing. I'm getting more and more years added, more and more of a hellish situation added, higher, being put in solitary. All these different things are added for every murder he commit. He just keep committing murders. And then it's like, son, if you really love me, stop committing all these murders. Like, stop. I got 45 years on the books. Please don't commit another murder because maybe I can get out. Maybe I'll still be alive after 45 years. But why would you go and continue to commit murder so that now I got 50 years, now I got 60 years, now I got 70 years, right? That shows that you don't love me. But if you do love me, you'll stop. That would have been how I would have wrote the book more like that, so that people will have an understanding. If you wanted to have a savior, that would be somebody saving you from the punishments by taking on your sins. Not, goddamn, boy, I'm gonna have to cut this. I'm gonna redo this poor section and make it into a small, 10-minute video. But that would be saving. That would be saving. Excuse me. Not this bullshit that they got you going believing. They say their ancestors did something wrong, so they are disabled and evil. Spirit got to them. That is the old belief, that they believe that if their ancestors did something, but then Jesus squared them away like, this boy is blind. Whose father? Who sinned? The mother or the father? And he was like, nobody did. He's just born that way, basically. And I know I missed a whole bunch of some of y'all comments, so let's see if I can catch back. Yeah, God became calm after Jesus. No, it's just it's a different God. Yeah, there's no such thing as free will in this Bible book. There's no free will. Free will, then you be able to choose. If it will be, if you choose me or you choose not, either way doesn't matter. You have free will. I'm not gonna punish you for not choosing me. That's like if I so when me and Angelina, we were friends for like 9 months before I said, "Hey, woman," and I did say it this way. I said, "You know what, woman? I'm gonna date you, and you're gonna like it." Now, if she didn't have free will, I was like, "Hey, you're gonna date me, and you're gonna like it. But if you don't, I'm gonna come by your house and I'm gonna beat your ass every day." What? She ain't got free will, and there's nothing can stop me from doing it. No police, none of that. I can do it. That's not free will. She would date me out of fear. This is the exact same thing when you have these men and women, well, women and men. So let me put it that way, men, because men can be in abusive situations. When you have these people who are in abusive relationships, they feel like they can't leave, and that that's this false love that this person has for them. Even though they get angry and beat the shit out of them, they go back to them. I wouldn't. This is why I'm not surprised when I see women who are devout into the church allow themselves to be physically abused. And some men, I haven't seen as many men, but I've seen more women who are devout. And the people who aren't devout to this book, swing on them if you want to. Jesus was murdered, and his prize was to go to heaven. Where's the sacrifice? Exactly. Yeah. That's a whole video by itself right there. I don't know what the watch coming back here for. I'm trying to enjoy. I mean, I know they doing they natural thing, but I need y'all just not come near me because I'm slightly allergic to y'all. I don't want to be swole up for about 5 days. So we're gonna make a deal. Y'all stay flying around over there. I'm gonna stay right here. Y'all don't come bother me. I won't bother y'all. Deal? Deal. I saw you who went behind me. You know, you got to talk to nature. But it's not. It's not a, no. There is no free will. And it's not a sacrifice. It's not a sacrifice at all. Right? Y'all got, Angelina, I need you to remember all of that stuff I said about that because I'm probably going to forget exactly how I said it. Okay. So it's been around the 1 hour mark of this video that I said all that. So I go back to it. Yep. Give us free will only to take our freedom. It makes no sense. It's like being in a cartel. You can leave. You have free will to leave. But if you do, you're going to get murdered. You have free will to leave the mafia. But if you do, you're going to get murdered. Now, if they let you go with a blessing, that's one thing. You got to get their blessing. But you just can't leave when you want to. You have to get permission to leave. And anytime you have to get permission to leave, permission to exercise your intellect or even your emotions, that is not free will. And this deity provided no sacrifice whatsoever. So why should I be so beholden to this deity? These people be crying and oh, he sacrificed so much for me. He sacrificed so much for me. There is no sacrifice when you know you're getting out in 3 days. And then you're going to be rich after that. That's not a sacrifice. Not even at all. Not even a little bit of a sacrifice. Shit. At least let him still be down there taking on the sins of man until revelation happens. That's probably how I would have wrote it. That he's taking on all the punishments of men and he's still in there until revelation happens. But see, the problem, he can't be fully God and be trapped in hell taking on all those. That wouldn't work. It would work if you were started that way, but because you could have made the doctrine fit. But that's not how they did it. Because then people will have that sense of duty, that a true sense of sacrifice. Yeah. So he didn't sacrifice nothing, not one blessed thing. And you don't have free will. So where does that leave you? That leaves you in the position to decide whether or not you're going to truly recognize who you are and the power that you have, and that you define your destiny, you define your life. And the only way, and you have to be willing and strong enough to break the cycle that you're in. And for me, it is a cycle of continuous life that you're in. We know that you don't die, but when you do leave this shell, you go somewhere else, you do something else. And if you haven't figured it out, the most logical scenario is that you come back. It might be 1,000 years later, 2,000 years, 10,000 years later, but you come back and you're going to live and be similar to what you were before because you're still trying to figure it out. How many of y'all seen the movie Groundhog Day? I shouldn't be talking about this because this actually be another good video, but I'm talking about it anyway. How many of y'all seen the movie Groundhog Day? Right? I know y'all a little bit behind, so I will wait. It's a classic movie. I love Groundhog Day. All right, got a movie Debbie has seen. I got to get Debbie into some movies, y'all. We got to get Debbie into some movies. So you know how in the movie Groundhog Day, he's great. LaShawna's seen it. Healing Light seen it. He's reliving the same day over and over and over and over again, right? But in the beginning of the movie, he starts out, he's an asshole. He's egotistical as hell. Then he starts living his day, and he's just trying to get some boom boom from old girl. And he hates the little town, all this stuff. So he's egotistical asshole. When he first starts reliving the day, first he goes and he comes to the realization of it. He abuses the situation. So, mind you, we got egotistical people in this world, and then we have abusers, and he's abusing his power, getting women to get him, find out about people and all this kind of stuff, so he can get some poom poom from different women that he thinks is sexy. Uh, and then he goes through a process where he starts to um, get depressed, and in that depression, he tries to kill himself like so many times, and he's constantly going. So then there's depression. So you got people who walk around, life is horrible, life is horrible, life is horrible. Uh, they're depressed. No matter what goes on in their life, they always see the brown in life. Sheila's seen it, great. Then he goes through another process. You can tell I watched this movie like probably 50 times. It's very esoterical if you really dig deep into it. So then he starts to better himself, in ways and things that he didn't know before. So he betters himself, and but he still can't break the cycle because even in bettering himself, and then he begins to help people, and he's buying people WrestleMania tickets. He's changing the old lady's tires, saving that little boy who never says thank you. But remember, he's like mad at him because he doesn't say thank you, he doesn't show gratitude. But then he finally just like, it's just what it is. And he's been a part of everybody else's life. He's helping the community get better. And then he's finally able to break the cycle when he realizes that the only way that he can receive love for somebody is to love himself enough to be sacrificial to that person. And then he's finally able to break the cycle. Some people go straight to the point that in order to break the cycle, you just gotta sacrificially love other people. But no, it's all those things that breaks the cycle. Getting over your ego, getting past your abusive, whatever levels of life you abuse your power, getting past your own depressions and self-pity, and begin learning to honor yourself and grow yourself and build yourself. But in the process of building yourself and growing yourself, adding value to the community and everybody around you. And then the final part is then loving yourself enough to love someone else sacrificially and picking the right person. Because, he was banging a bunch of other women first, but picking that right person who also understands that back. Getting through all of that broke the cycle of this repetitive life that he was living. Some estimate he lived 1,000. It was like 1,000 years. Some say it was 10,000 years. Just all the shit that he was able to learn to do. It was a long ass time. It wasn't a week. You know, um, but we free ourselves from the cycle of repetitive life. For us, it's not the same day over and over again, but it's the same. We see the same conditions for the most part over and over. And it may take you 100 lifetimes just to get over your ego. 100 more lifetimes to get past your depression. 100 more lifetimes to get to a point where you better yourself. Uh, then 100 more where you are truly a value to the community. You ain't got to change the world, just your community, just those that are close to you. You know. But it's not till you get all of that working in a life that the cycle becomes broken. Right? People like to ask, why are we here? That's why we're here. We're here because, not because we're trying to have that experience, but because we need to break. We are here to break that cycle. We're here to get to a point where we have enough value to go to to a higher stage of consciousness, that we've elevated ourselves. Why this is the process? Who knows? Who knows why this is the process? Who knows um, where it began? Do I think it's satisfying some negative dharma that was in some other previous scale of life? No, but it just is. That's the thing. It's one of those things that you say it just is. Like yesterday, we was talking about gravity. We probably understand a fifth of gravity, but we know it exists and we know it is just is. Yeah. But every year, like my birthday, my born day is coming up next month. I'll be 52. I always reevaluate the previous year of who I am, who I was that year. Did I make any adjustments? Did I make any strides forward? Did I grow? Did I get better? Am I more valuable to the community? And then I'll do it for the previous 10 years. I'll focus on the previous 10 years and measure myself so that I can create, figure out a trajectory to move forward. You know? Because I recognize, just like people say, you break family curses. Your family was always broke. You break a family curse by getting a budget, not living beyond your means, making yourself more valuable to the marketplace, and investing your money so that your children will learn your ways to be more financially astute than your parents or your uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters, all them. So you break that cycle. It's the same way with you. You got to break your own cycle. It's just you're breaking a cycle from previous living. So look at who you are and how you've been for the last 2, 3 decades. If you're still struggling with something for the last 2, 3 decades and you see that there's a pattern there, that's what you should be working on to break. I watched some concepts related to Gnostics. Seems these guys are all evil. They just use ancestors. These so-called gods are for the most part, they're created by the mind of men, and that's why these guys they're evil. They're really evil to us because they are the foreign culture to us. If if this book was written, if the Bible was written today, there will be absolutely nothing in it about animal sacrifices. If it was written in an American culture, based on the American culture, there would be nothing in there about animal sacrifices. Daughters wouldn't have to go back to their fathers or live with their sons. Women would be able to inherit property. Uh, no one would tell a woman that if she's assaulted by a man that she has to then marry that man if he pays her dowry. Slavery will be outlawed. This guy would have like one of those 10 Commandments: no man should own another man, you know, or woman. It would specify man, woman, you know, no human should own another human. A lot of the things that are written in this book wouldn't make the cut if the book was written today. Even the things that Jesus said, a lot of his stuff, some of his stuff wouldn't make the cut. It really wouldn't. When the woman was caught with adultery and he drew the line in the sand, the first thing he would say was, is something about equality and where's the man at? Where's the man? Where's your proof that adultery was committed? And then maybe still let he who is without sin cast the first stone. That's valid. But he wouldn't have said whether it's free or bondman, male or female, because he would have spoke out against slavery. Like slavery would have been a thing. Monte, Monty Arnold. I like that. Monty Arnold. Monty Arnold. Monty, that sounds like you got some money. Hello, my name is Monty. Monty Arnold. Nice to meet you. Would you like to come over for a spot of tea? Sorry about that. I don't know if you find me for the first time, Monty, but don't pay attention to some of the foolishness. Deuteronomy 13, God calls for and every wilt holocaust, all things were to be plundered and burned, dead or alive. We haven't got there yet. Um, Deuteronomy is going to be interesting because in Deuteronomy there's some good this deity shows his genocidal tendencies. Uh, he's already shown some already in Genesis, and we've done Genesis, Exodus, and Leviticus. But yes, his genocidal tendencies are readily apparent. I have to go back and read that one. I don't know that one right off the top of my head and everything surrounding it, but I wouldn't be surprised for him to call for you to plunder everything and kill everybody and everything. Very genocidal deity. But certainly, this deity is the type that tells the people to go kill everybody, kill all these men and women, kill all the young boys, the old men, and then kill the women who've known a man, but the ones who didn't, take them as your wives. That wouldn't make it in today's world. This God would would have to go before the Hague and be tried for human rights violations consistently in this book. Moses would be charged with it. Abraham charged with human rights violations. Hell, Isaac, Jacob. Isn't it funny? The Hebrew Israelites and all these other people, they don't like Esau, right? But Esau wouldn't be charged with any human rights violations other than owning slaves, which is what all of them get charged for that. No, damn near no Testament. But he didn't genocide nobody. His family members, his sons, and no, they didn't genocide nobody. There's no account of them taking physical advantage of anybody or bad business. None of those kinds of things. But the one that's held up, Jacob, he would be charged, or his sons would be charged with genocide and murder. Jacob would be charged with um, being a con man, using his little painted sticks. Uh, his wife, one of his wives, would be charged with theft. Rachel, the one he loved the most, she'd be charged with theft. He's a liar. We know that. Lied to his brother. Um, he'd be charged as being a bad parent. Yeah, this dude, but he's better than Esau. And the only difference is because, and the only reason Isaac is considered better than Esau is two reasons. Reason number one, well, three reasons. Theoretically, he's supposed to be smarter than Isaac. I mean, smarter than Esau, right? So it might be four, smarter than Esau, uh, but he's just a trickster. And I mean, Esau was kind of dumb. I'm gonna sell you my birthright for a bowl of soup. I ain't never been that damn hungry before. But Esau came out and he was hairy and evidently a redhead. His mother showed favoritism. That's the third reason. His mother showed favoritism. That's why he was that being better. And the main reason why Jacob was considered better than Esau because he went and married his cousins, whereas Esau went and married a Canaanite woman. Because these jokers be charged with incest. So he was willing to marry a cousin, bang a cousin, two cousins at that, two cousins who are sisters. You know, I don't have a problem with polygamy at all. You want to be a polygamist, do your thing. I think actually polygamy would be great for the black community in America, to be honest. Uh, yeah, I think polygamy would be. If Angelina was allowable of polygamy, I'd have two wives. So I don't think there's anything wrong with polygamy. But I got a problem when they're sisters. I could not do that. Angelina, don't take this the wrong way. But there's no way in hell it could be you and your sister. Nothing against your sister. She crazy as hell. She funny. But there's no way it wouldn't sit right. It just doesn't sit right with me. You got two sisters. And he's favored. He's the one whose name gets changed to Israel, and the one that these people are basing themselves off of. That's why I'm focusing on him in this part. No, we're not doing sisters. That means that, let me make sure I get it right. That means that if you had children by both sisters, then the kids are not only brothers and sisters, they're also cousins. So they brother cousins or sister cousins. Like they all kind of mixed up. Like they don't know what to be. Mm-mm. That just don't jive with me. But he's favored. He's favored. She's, Angelina's so stupid. It'll make the holidays easier. Oh yeah, because if you had, oh my gosh, that would be that would be. I never thought about that with polygamy. That would be irritating. So if you got two wives, and generally I like, if you got two wives, and if they're close to their families, then holidays, time off, weekend, go visit. Oh, you gotta go visit. You gotta pick and choose whose family you're gonna go visit for this. You know how like mother-in-laws be tripping. Mother-in-laws be wanting you for their special holiday, whatever holiday they like the most. They be wanting their family over for those holidays, and then you're like, well, you get this year, but you ain't getting next year or the year after because we gotta rotate this. Her family 1 year, then her family, then my family, then her family, then we come back to you. Then you, back to you, back to me, back to you, back to you. It's like every third year. What part's disgusting, Debbie? The sisters or the whole thing? Just curious. You're fine either way. Uh, yeah. Oh, and Brian, re-ask me the questions or statements that you said. I know you typed it out. If you can go up, find it, copy and paste it. Oh, the sisters? Yeah. I couldn't do this. Ooh. And let's say I did the other one, polygamy? Polygamy. Me and my brother could not be married to the same one. That's no, no, no. Can't do that. Oh, and two mother-in-laws. Oh my. One is enough. Actually, I've never had a problem with in-laws. Me personally, in-laws have always loved me. But and even not in-laws, girlfriend, parents, whatever, they've always loved me because I'm me. But the fact of having to deal with it and constantly deal with it, and then the things that they do, the daughters dealing with their mothers and fathers and whatever issues they may have, if they were both coming from the same family, oh, I'd rather have I'd rather have two different mother-in-laws than the one mother-in-law from two sisters. I take that. I take that. Mm-hmm. would take that in a heartbeat. I just want to let y'all know I'm having deja vu right now. I'm having deja vu and something about somebody from the water company or somebody that they need to turn the water off in the neighborhood or some shit today. Or maybe I'm having deja vu because that happened last summer that they had to come in the neighborhood and turn the water all off. But I was in the front yard when they came and told me that. I don't know. But anyway, but yeah, that's I'm not. I'm not. Mm-mm. Yeah, you make that face, but I'd rather have two separate mother-in-laws than have two sisters. Mm, you are asking for some problems. For me. Uh, there was a whole. Oh yeah, because of Jacob and his foolishness and how he's favored it. But the main thing is because he married his cousins, so they like that more so than the kid who stayed home, even though he lost his birthright. He stayed home. He took care of his parents in their old age. He didn't leave for at least 14 years and took care of mom and daddy as they got older because daddy was already old when all this was happening. But he the bad kid because he married a Canaanite woman. See, that's that bullshit. That's kind of like you have a like in a black family, you have the one son who marries a black he marries a black woman. And then you got the other son, he goes marry a white woman. But the one who married the white woman takes better care of his parents and is involved with their life and give them less headache than the one who married the black woman. But we're gonna side with this one simply on the basis that he married a black woman. That just don't sound right to me. Doesn't sound right at all. I'm gonna let that. I don't care which one of my kids. I don't care who they marry. Which one of them is the better kid to their daddy? So, Sydney Simone Lincoln, if you're ever watching this, know that if I'm showing favoritism towards anybody as y'all are adults, it's because one of y'all is taking better care of me or talking to me more. You know, you're better relationship with me because you chose to have one. If you want it better, you need to do better. Just putting that out there in the future when y'all watch this in 10 years or something like that. Just so they know everything's everything's on Front Street. Got no reason to hide that. My kids already know that. I already told them, y'all grown now. The growth of this relationship, you got to put more effort into it because I'm not just coming and picking you up and we got our rituals now. You gotta be involved, make conscious decisions of it yourself. Hmm. What do y'all think about my analysis of Groundhog Day and how that applies to your life? I'm curious because I don't know if I saw any comments about that. Let me check. They could have came by, but I was all up in my mind. Yeah, no, y'all ain't saying nothing about that. If you haven't seen the movie, then what did you just think about that thought process? Period. Like I've always had that thought process, but I was always reluctant to express it in that level of detail, even though there's even more detail that can be expressed in. Simply because I'm always mindful of creating a religious thought process, or I'm not. That's not what I'm interested in trying to do. I'm really don't want. I don't want to influence people to the point where they're just following what I do, what I say. I want people to think for themselves. But what do y'all think about that movie now that I've expressed it in the way that I did in that thought process of life? Because if let me say, let's money is so easy to measure. That's why I like using money a lot, and relationships too. If you've consistently struggled financially, and every 10 years it seems like that's all you've done, you had some highs and lows, but you consistently are back in the same situation for the majority of the time, then is that not you perpetuating your own Groundhog Day? And you're creating it. And there's really no reason that you should. It makes sense. The, the only reason you keep repeating it is because you are allowing it. You watched it last week? Yes, it's a great movie. I've probably seen that movie about 15, 20 times. It's one of those movies that if I go into the den right now and it's on, I would watch it. And sometimes I would purposely watch it. But I mean, really think about that. If for the most part, I don't know how old you guys are. I don't know how many decades you've been adults. But if you're 40 and above, you've had at least 2 decades of being an adult. Yeah, that too. No, wait. Yeah, 20, 30, 40. Yeah, 2 decades of being an adult. 30, 40. If you can't really distinguish a difference, yeah, maybe you was in an apartment, but you were still kind of 2 paychecks away from losing everything. Like you couldn't survive past 2 paychecks. And maybe now you're 40 and you're in a house, but you still can't survive past 2 paychecks. You was 20 and you really couldn't. Hey, Mr. Lizard. Um, you know, you couldn't vacation too much, and you're 40 and you still can't vacation. And yeah, you might have added kids, you added all these different expenses, but you kept adding expenses as you grew financially, but you didn't change your process of what you did with your finances. Yeah. So like I was talking to my son the other day, and I was like, okay, how much have you been saving? What percentage of your check you've been saving? And he told me his percentage, and I was like, okay, good. You're doing something that when I was 22, I wasn't uh, able to do because of responsibilities that I took on. But even after those responsibilities diminished, I still didn't do it to the extent that I should have. You're breaking the cycle. Change comes from within. It certainly does. But if your life is relatively the same, you haven't. It's you. It's all you. I realized 2 years ago. I said, you know what? For the last what 20 years, it's been business up, business down, business up, business down, business up, business down. Always hitting this ceiling, always hitting this bottom, up and down, up and down. You know, never seeming to break through. So I sat back and I had to reevaluate. Well, how do I really want to live my life? How do I really? Because this is when I was, turning 50. How do I really want my life to be? How do I want to exist? And I have been working 7 days a week for the majority of my life, or the majority of the last 20 years. And I was like, that's not what I want. That's not how I want to. That's not how I envisioned this. This is not how I wanted things to go. And then I looked around and I looked at some guys who were, you know, had similar lives that I had. And I'm like, okay, this Joker is 60 and is still living that same life. This guy's 70, still living that same life. Uh, and I was like, that's not what I want. So I started a new business to see if I can break that ceiling with that one and have two businesses at the same time, two storefronts. But I saw the ceiling again and realizing that, you know what, I'm not coming to the business with enough money on the table to break the ceiling. If I come back to a business, it has to be enough finances to break the ceiling right off the bat. So I started focusing on this 2 years ago so that it will be large enough that I can walk away from what's not going to break that change, not what's not going to bring change, so that I can have the freedom to break away. Because what's the true break that I was looking for? It wasn't making so much money, but it was having my time. I started business to have my time, and business took exactly the thing away from me that I started it for, and that was the ceiling that I couldn't break. It wasn't financial. I mean, finance played a part in it, but it's the time. One was a gourmet popcorn shop. The other was a cigar lounge. I wanted to do this uh, 20 years ago and just focus on this, uh, running my mouth and then coaching people, running my mouth and coaching people. That's what I wanted to do. But when your children are little and you got responsibilities for others, it's like this quote that I heard in this movie. Um, well, no, it's not a movie. It's a series called The Last Days of Ptolemy Gray. Samuel Jackson, Apple TV, great little series. He said something to the when the girl and the boy who's on a date, the young girl who's helping him. He was asking the boy, "What do you want to be? What's your plan? Where you see yourself in 10 years?" And it's important for a man to know all this. The girl got upset, like, "Why you never asked me?" Because women can be this and women can be that. And the basic message that he gave him was that women can be whatever they want to be, but men ain't got a choice. Men got to figure shit out and create and protect and provide. You got a choice. You got to take on what you got to do to take care of your family. Now, of course, he was an older guy, so he's coming from a different generation, but there's still that's still a truth that holds. Once a man takes on a family, you ain't got your choices diminish. Your ability to do whatever you love goes away unless you start out early before you get a family doing something that you love and being financially stable in that. Once you take on a family, who cares what you want to do? You got to go do what you got to do. That's why I used to be an IT guy. That's why I used to be a personal trainer who owned a gym, because I didn't do it because that's what I wanted to do. Am I still running all the businesses? I'm still running the cigar business to a certain degree. I just minimized it. Uh, like I sell cigars by appointment, and then my cigar, we'll put those out into different lounges here by the end of the year. But yeah, I am in a position. I did maneuver things well enough that when the rubber met the road, I was able to transition into just coaching and doing this right here. I had to build this audience big enough where social media can generate the remaining income that I need in order to facilitate, a basic lifestyle that I'm happy with. Well, let me not say happy. A basic lifestyle that is not miserable. Put it that way. Because happy with lifestyle be totally different. The background sounds will either be mountains or be some water, some waterfalls, rivers, lakes, ocean. Uh, I'd be like, all right, guys, we're in Machu Picchu. We're gonna take a look at some ruins. All right, now next month we're gonna be in Egypt. Then next month we're gonna be in Israel, and then next month we're gonna be in China. I'm gonna show y'all how the Great Wall of China was not built by the Chinese. You know, that would be a life I'm happy with. One whole year, just riding around in an RV around North America and Central America, and then South America. Ship it over to Darien Strait or Darien Gap, and keep on going. Wait, who built the wall? The I don't speak Mandarin, so I'm gonna probably say this wrong, but the Shungu Shangon people most likely built the Wall of China, the Great Wall of China. Let me type the name so you can look it up. Will you visit Kemet? Oh yeah, I gotta go. It'll be going back to Kemet for me. I went there when I was much younger in the military, and about 5 years ago, I had this recurring dream, and I did a video about it. But I had this recurring dream where I went and touched it. It was telling that there was this being that was saying when you touch the pyramid, the Great Pyramids in Giza, all will be revealed. So it was like touch that and all will be revealed. So I gotta go back. But plus I want to take my kids, Angelina, you know, all the kids. We all just go. I'm gonna need a real shiny nickel. Because you're talking about uh, taking 7 people. Shit. That, oh, mm, whew, 7 people. Mm, mm. And the way I would like to do it, hell, just me and Angie by ourselves, we estimated about 25,000. The way I want to do it, there's much cheaper ways to do it, but just the way I wanted to do it, cost 25,000 for 2 people. Uh, but yeah, you really have to dig deep into the Shangung people. I know I'm saying it wrong, but you got to dig past what Wikipedia don't tell you, past what uh, when you're just reading what some people who just go ahead and acknowledge that the Chinese built it. No, but those people. I know this is a divergent aspect of what we have talked about, but those people who there are multiple, they were a nomadic tribe, a collection of nomadic tribal people. The primary tribe was the Slab Grace people, which would be your more Mongol people. And but they are people. Some of their people could have been these. It was a collection of nomadic tribes. So as far as from Iran and Turkey, from southern parts of Russia, Siberia, and Mongol, and North Indus Valley people, all mixed together and created a confederation. That confederation becomes the Zhonggu people in around the third century BCE, and they were a huge. By that time frame, they were a competing empire. You had two competing empires in that area. You had the who become the Han Dynasty. I mean the HU Chinese dynasty people, and you had the Northern Chinese people. And the the evidence actually looks like the Zhonggu people built the wall to keep those people out. When you look at the Great Wall of China, all the watchtowers are not facing outward to keep the Mongols or the Han from invading northern China. The towers are facing inward. So the only reason those people did build it to face inward, then that would be they built it in order to maintain isolation of their people. But they didn't. They didn't want to maintain. They didn't want to create isolation because when they did become isolated from the wall being built, they wind up having a bunch of civil unrest, which was very disruptive to the northern Chinese people. And so they wouldn't have built it for their own to keep their own people captive, like kind of like how isolated, kind of like how Japan did for 264 years, that they kept their people isolated from the world and fell behind. They weren't trying to do that, but it faces outward to keep the northern Chinese and the Hu from messing with the Zhonggun people. Uh, and then they maintained it for a while, and then those people got absorbed into the Hu and to the northern Chinese. They got absorbed like 200-300 years, or about 300-400 years time frame of being great, getting their ass whooped, being great again, getting their ass whooped, and then being absorbed through marriages and treaties and all these things over like a 300-400 year period. But yeah, it's most likely that those people built it. But of course, once you win China, am I going to say that a competing force that eventually did, some of them became part of us, am I going to give them the credit and say they built it? Hell no. I'm going to say we built it. My ancestors, my ancestors built this. We know how history goes like that. People will claim stuff for themselves in a heartbeat. Oh, no, yo. Even though we know that somebody else did that, we did it. You think Thomas Edison designed the light bulb all by himself, but the black man who developed that filament in order for it to work never got his credit. Oh yeah, Chinese history, man, is very very interesting to see what they was doing, and we get so focused on European and American culture, and now more recently African culture. We forget that other people had a lot of shit going on during their time, during the same time frame. So while you got the Levant with the conquering of the, let's see, put that in around the 200 time frame. So you got the Greeks into the Romans, and you got to think, why did the Greeks stop in India? I mean, they couldn't go on to China. They just traded with them along the Silk Road. That's because that Zhonggu dynasty wasn't playing with them jokers, and as well as the Mongols and the Hu, the Hans, the Hu and the Huns. So what was so powerful about them? What was going on in their technology that prevented the Greeks and the Romans from being able to continue their conquest? So their history is very rich, and that would have lasted all the way while uh, because there were some Chinese emissaries once the Hu and the Zhai dynasties started taking over, that came to the Ottoman Empire and traded with them, came to the Vatican and traded and got treaties with them. They communicated, so they knew they existed. They ain't mess with. Oh, okay. I was wondering why them male cardinals was flying around here. There's a female over there. This ain't season for mating. This y'all season for cuddling. This cuddle. Getting ready to get into cuddle season. There's a female cardinal. You can tell it's female because she's dull. She's dull in color. The males are bright so that they can attract the attention of the female. What's your opinion on the movie Marco Polo? Um, I haven't seen the movie Marco Polo. I watched the series. I watched most of the series of Marco Polo. There was I don't know who did it. I don't know if it was Stars or HBO or something like that. They had a series of Marco Polo. The series was decent. It was decent. It was more in line with Genghis Khan and the other Khans and how they acted and the how they infiltrated with Christianity. The series also had Prester John in it. And I thought that was pretty cool to have a legend of Prester John and his mythical military. So I enjoyed the series when I had time to watch it. I never saw the movie. So, and I know a series gets more time. You know what I mean? Like a series, you got 12, 16 hours, depending on how many episodes. You got 12 hours or 16 hours instead of trying to tell a story in an hour and a half. So they was able to get into a lot of details of how marriages work, conquering of different kingdoms or city states, and uh, get into the political aspects of it, with how Marco was used, as kind of an emissary also for the Christian church. Oh yeah, they'll bend the hell out of some histories. Yeah, they'll bend it. Uh, but I like the series because when Marco first showed up, they treated him like shit. They treated him like shit, like they should have, and they would have. You know, some of these movies make it seem like they come rolling up in there and they're like, oh, the white man has come to bring us what? Bring us gold and all this stuff. And like, man, they had plenty of gold. You needed more from them than they needed from you. Stole their gunpowder. Well, you didn't steal the gunpowder. Traded their gunpowder and made guns. But yeah, I'm mindful of these series. These series can, what they can, what they add to it for Hollywood's sake to keep you engaged and enticed. Because some of it is not as exciting as Hollywood makes it out to be. And of course, the Great White Savior is always a part of these shows. Check out Telegram Ops. If you create a group there, it would be really good. Oh, Telegram app. What is it? I forget. I'm not using TikTok anymore on live stream, so I can actually look things up. Now, I'm not one. I'm not. Can Telegram app? To be honest with you, can it be monetized? If I can't monetize the thing, I don't really bother with it. There is the idea you can bring people from one app to another, but that's kind of hard to do. People like whatever app that they're involved in. I'm having what do you call it when I'm having ghost insect bites? I know they're not out here biting me, but I have, you have that ghost effect because I'm out here. Telegram. Can't turn my phone back on. So it's for communication and messaging. Oh, a secure messaging and audio calling cloud-based app that allows you to send messages, photos, videos, and files anytime to your contacts for free. You can also create groups for up to 200,000 people or channel for broadcasting to unlimited contacts and audiences. Hmm. Sounds like WhatsApp. And I have to be honest, certain apps like these, it's not that I don't want people to have private access to me, but I can't give out just free private access because a person may think, oh, well, I'm just calling and I only call them once a week or once a month, not realizing that there's a whole bunch of people who think, oh, I'm just going to call them once a month. Or I'm just going to send them a message once a month or once a week. And then there's like 200 damn messages. And then especially now, some of them questions and stuff get a little long and get turned into like, I'm just trying to slip in, trying to get a little coaching without having to pay for it, which wouldn't be fair to the people who do pay me to coach them. Yeah, I'm good. I just use WhatsApp for what I'm using for, but that's probably not an app that I would download. No. See, if I do, when I do the stuff like, so let's say I start pushing subscriptions on these channels, and if I did something special for subscription, if I want to have like a group meeting that's only for subscription people, I can use these same programs and say this video is only for people in the group. It's private. Or if I want everybody to be able to talk, I do have a Zoom. I have a paid for Zoom. I pay for a Zoom subscription um, because I use Zoom for my coaching. If it's one-on-one coaching, I don't necessarily have to use Zoom. I don't use Zoom in that one. But if I'm doing a group, then I just use Zoom. But I appreciate it. Appreciate the thought. Thanks for looking out for it, brother. I need that sun to go ahead and move past that tree. As you can see, I got a bunch of trees. It's weird. I got a bunch of trees around here. And they go on and they keep going. Somebody thought they were gonna put some solar lights to light the pathway. But they uh, just to let you know, Angelina, it's only when this sun go past this tree here, but there's a small gap, then it's right behind another tree. Those solar lights don't get maybe 5-10 minutes of sun is where all they're gonna get. And that's why they barely work. And I can tell now, see why it's two main ones that work, because they're the two that's gonna get the sun. The rest of them things they get no sunlight. It's kind of cool. I don't get a chance to be out here like this. Now that I have an opportunity, I can be out here like this. Background look, appreciate it. I got to call the new lawn people today. go ahead and set them up. Come over here and cut their hair grass and trim some of these trees, branches, and edge it up. Because you know who ain't gonna do it? It's me. I ain't doing it. I don't do that kind of work, boss. Any other question? Brian, you supposed to. What were you saying about the pastors and how they try to get people, and then you said some other stuff. I don't know if I covered it. Let me see if I can find it. A few days ago, a pastor came to my home and tried to get me back. I explained to him about stolen stories and stuff, and he said, "Why evil spirits leave in names of gods?" And also said God died. What? He said, "Why evil spirits leave in names of God?" And also said God died for us. It's like what they are waiting for a moment when people who left religion go through. Well, we talked about that. They do wait for you to go through an emotional time frame. That's when you're most. Okay, so I got you. Go back to this one then. Wait a minute, did I miss it? Oh, there it is. Stolen. That's the interesting. Now they like to use that one to say that these other gods had names, and so they weren't truly God. When the Hebrew God does have a name, but they say the name is so sacred that they don't want to say it because if you say it wrong, then you'll be punished for saying it wrong. Um, the Yod He Vahe or the Tetragrammaton, all these other little things, or Jehovah, which is definitely not his name. But their God does have a name, and then they name him Jesus later on. But he has a name. So having a name doesn't mean anything. And one of the ones they really love to pull out is no other God died for your sins. To take on your sins, as if that's the measuring stick. That doesn't have to be a measuring stick at all. I always tell them at that point, it's like that's your measuring stick. That's something that you try to trot out there. Now, when you look at it, the purpose of the whole purpose of the sacrifice is the same thing as Horus. He died. Horus didn't die for your sins, but his job in the afterlife is to take on your sins so that your heart can be lighter than a feather when you do your 42 confessions of Ma'at. It's pretty much still the same principle, just done in a different way. Uh, so you still have an advocate for you at the seat of judgment. There is no difference in what the main concept is. It's just they're trying to hit an emotional point to say, look how much he loved you. Well, is it not the same love if Horus is willing to stand there at this scale to try to keep Sobek from consuming your heart? It's the same damn thing. And as a matter of fact, you got two. You also have Anubis, who once Horus takes on your account, or Anubis and the other elder, they supposed to go into this little halls of Amenti and discuss whether or not to let you in with Horus taking on your sins. So, which will be comparable to an angelic host, it's still the same thing. There is still no difference between this Jesus and Horus when it comes to that aspect of it. And then he didn't die because there's no such thing as death, and it wasn't a real sacrifice anyway. If he already knew in 3 days he would rebuild himself and ascend to the heavens like Hercules, it's no real sacrifice in that. So I wouldn't even. That's definitely not one that that's how you should. That's one way you can defend that. It's one way you can make them backpedal, because I've had that one where I've had different ministers come and they say, well, Jesus is the only one who died for you. And I'll talk to them about the measuring stick. It's not the only way to measure. Things can be measured in different ways. And then at the end of the day, what really matters is what happens at the judgment. Religious people have to pull all their best lives working for this religion, or have put all their best lives to working for this religion. All their life is built on it. How to how to explain to them that they are wrong and their God is evil? By showing them where this God is wrong within their own book. One of the reasons why we've been going through this Old Testament is to do that, is to show them where the wrong happens, how this God is narcissistic evil. My thing is, if I show you at the root, then the rest of the tree is spoiled. Right? Now, when you get to the New Testament, then I demonstrate what Jesus is talking about, a totally different God, but you're still hanging on to this old God saying that it's the same. So if it's the same, then you do have a God that changes. Is not consistent. He's not the same as you would like to think that he is. And then demonstrate even how some of the teachings of Jesus are not moral teachings. Hell, I can always go to the fact that he didn't end slavery. Uh, he didn't end torture. And then he spoke. He wasn't even the Messiah that the Old Testament spoke of. The Old Testament was talking about a Messiah who was going to be a more warlike, commanding general type, establish a kingdom here in the now, not some fantasy. The kingdom is ethereal and all that. Excuse me. Didn't Jesus volunteer? According to the Mormons, Jesus and Lucifer, who are brothers, um, sat at the council table. How should we handle this earth thing? Because they were two children of the God of this earth. And mind you, the God Adonai of this earth is just a Mormon who reached the level of enlightenment with his wife, had a whole bunch of celestial children. All those celestial children, Jesus and Lucifer being two of them, came down to earth. And according to them, this Jesus volunteered to come down and be the savior, through his sacrifice and redemption to show them the way. And after he came back to life, he came over to the Native Americans and taught them. So that's the Mormons' teaching of that. And then once you become a good Mormon and you marry the right type of wife, and it was wives back in the day, y'all would have this celestial wedding marriage, and then y'all would go off at death and create another earth and repeat the process. Have a whole bunch of celestial babies, and their celestial baby souls come down to earth, and they try to try to do the same thing. It's like a repetitive process. So in that religion, Jesus did volunteer. The New Testament Christians tried to make it seem like Jesus was around in the beginning and knew what the plan was and was just part of the plan. You remember the Jehovah's daughter story from the Bible? Oh, Japhet's daughter story in the Bible. I had a fight with a believer with that one. They said God didn't ask for that sacrifice, and it was her father for killing her. Yeah, but this guy knew exactly who was going to walk through that door first, and knew who and what was going to walk through that door. So this guy was still knowing that this man is going to have to sacrifice his daughter. And it doesn't matter that she went and served this deity. I think she served in the temple for a while, but the ending implication was that he was going to sacrifice his daughter. And when they said sacrifice back then, they meant blood, guts, kill your sacrifice. It wasn't, oh, I'm gonna sacrifice my daughter, but she's gonna be in a convent for the rest of her life. That wasn't a sacrifice. Grand Rising LaQuinn. You're late, JB. Jungle Brothers. But yeah, that wasn't. They're gonna always try to defend that because they don't want to accept that their deity didn't mind human sacrifices. That it was still a sweet aroma to him. And they'll try to change the part in Exodus and Leviticus where it says that you're supposed to give your first sons to this deity to say that they were supposed to be priests. But no, the only people who were going to be priests was Aaron's line. So for all other Israelites to give their first sons could only be in sacrifices. And then the ancient Israelite temples that have been found, uh, they demonstrate that there possibly was children sacrifice. I know that there was a temple found that was it was a Baal temple or Baal or Moloch. Well, no, they haven't established yet who it was for. They don't know. They want to say Baal or Moloch right off the whip because they verified that there was child sacrifice going on. Uh, so they're trying to lean away from it being a Hebrew Israelite uh, temple and trying to force it to be one for either Baal or Moloch. But they still working on that site. See, this is one reason why eventually it's gonna have to be a whole lot of I gotta do a whole lot of traveling because I wouldn't want to sit here and wait for all the papers to be done, but to go gain access and see for myself and then report it to y'all while I'm there. I don't know where y'all live, but is it me? Is fall coming real early? Seems like fall is coming a little bit early. Just waking up, JB. I understand, man. I understand. I understand. I'm gonna just stay away from religious people. They read that book every day, but don't answer anything in it. No, they can't. They attach to it, so they have to turn a blind eye on it. Grand Rise and Elise. Yeah, they will turn a blind eye on it because they can't allow that book to show them the wickedness of this deity. If they did, it would mess up their entire program. Uh, they wouldn't be able to function because then for them losing their faith would mean that they have to go against the grain and then they have to seek out some other type of faith. Right? They would hardly look within themselves for their own personal development and growth, and then possibly through that find a pathway of spiritual pathway, and maybe no spiritual pathway at all. I don't think you actually have to have a spiritual pathway. You just have to have a morality pathway. That's the only pathway I think you have to have. You have to develop a sense of morality. I'm sorry. I got to put this lean up because the sun is baking my toe over there. I'll be glad when all the solicitors stop calling my phone, though. Um, Religious people ask no questions. Their answer is God, and He can do whatever He wants. Oh yeah, the God of the gaps and the Creator versus the creation. But when you compare that to anything else, it doesn't work. You just can't say God did it just because science can't figure it out or you can't figure it out. And then to say that because you create something, that means you can do whatever you want with it. Sure, if I created that chair, we don't consider that chair to be sentient. We don't consider this sofa that I'm sitting on to be sentient. So if I want to burn it, no problem. But And I could have built this from scratch. But if I were to have, but my children, they're sentient. They we give them more protection. I can't just burn my kids. Hell, you can't even do that to animals. Go and like when Larry came walking through my yard the first time, I grabbed the fire pit poker, and I just kind of hit the ground, swung around, just let him know, man, go on over there, go on over there now, walk on into them woods. Second time he got a little closer, he was like, oh, like almost behind this damn sofa. I was like, hey, all right, Larry, you get any closer, I'm gonna have to bring my gun out here. I think he understood the energy of that because Larry didn't bring his ass any closer after that. But if I would have shot Larry, because Larry was a possum, they wouldn't have said too much. Maybe a violation for discharge of a firearm in a neighborhood or something like that. But they ain't gonna say too much. But let that been a dog or a cat, because we in America. That's a whole nother story. Just posted something on Facebook about the Bible and the broad general statement. There's nothing new under the sun. And I also said my response was I haven't seen any type of template for a computer or electronics in a museum. And the first and the first works from the first work to start a civilization, providing that cell phones and computers aren't new things under the sun. That's an interesting thought. Uh, they'll try to hit your back and say, well, abacus, that was like the first computer. Or uh, they don't mean it literally. They mean like there's no new ideas or no new things like culturally that happen. But that is valid. That there are new things under the sun. Yeah. Now I take there's nothing new under the sun as meaning that at any time of existence, every idea or thought that you have, somebody else has the same thought and idea. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've ridden past a place like, what would be good right there if you put this restaurant or this bank or this factory or whatever. That would be a great spot for this or that. And then within a short period of time, somebody put it there. So whatever thought you have is in the ether, and everybody can pick up on that thought. That's why I tell people when they're doing business consultation, whatever idea you have about something in a certain area, you gotta move your feet because somebody else is thinking about the exact same thing. Oh, Angelina, I was wrong. That pathway gets no sun whatsoever. A little in between the branches. Because now the sun is in the spot where I thought that area would get some sun. It ain't getting no sun. So them solar ones, we might can move those to the front yard. I feel being spiritual means you let your own spirit guide you in life. I'm 54, and I was using the word spiritual long before religion hijacked it and took it as a religious term. I know they do that consistently. They would take it and make it some of their own bullshit. Because just like I did a video about woke had nothing to do with what it's being used for today. And spiritual people, religion. When I was coming up, and probably up until about 10, 15 years ago, religious people were not talking about spiritual. They were talking, I'm religious. But religious became a bad word for mental slaves, so now they don't want to use it anymore. Uh, but yeah, letting that's why I do like the philosophy of the Tao, because the Tao is all about just getting into the flow of the way, getting into the flow of your natural energy, and you allow that to get into the flow of the natural energy of the universe. Or the way is considered either the universe or what a Taoist would consider to be the level of God, but it's not this malevolent or benevolent version that all these other religions will have. I would like two people can enter a river, and just based on, and even though the river is going to flow, and we know the river is going to go where the river is going. My uncle Code Dog told me that, but the river is going to go where the river is going to go. And but even though two people enter that river, you can enter at the exact same spot at the exact same time, but who you are, your body, how you move, how you allow yourself to flow down the river, you will have a different journey than the other person, and you will still most likely exit the river at a different point than the other person because your journey is different. Your journey may keep you wider to the left before you get all the way over to the right, where their flow hit a rapid or movement or how they move, and all of a sudden they're exiting a lot sooner than you. So everybody has their own path. Everybody has their own journey, rather, in the same river. But like the Tao talks about that. I told you because it was way of going where village know what's right from wrong. Watch children, and you can see the brain working and developing with the negative and the positive thoughts. Religion isn't necessary anymore. We have evolved into a species to be aware of the addict from a young age. I raised my kids with zero religious belief, and they are great human beings. They don't live in fear of some God. My kids are exactly the same way. They were raised that same way. I made sure that they were taught all the different religions, uh, so they can be knowledgeable about them, so that somebody can't dupe them into any of them. Okay, I can see it and understand it in scene, sense of the idea that the mind, in the mind, right and right. The sun is hitting a different angle on here. Right, the thoughts may have always been there, and this is why I say it's too broad of a statement. It's not a specific pinpoint. Pinpoint enough. It's very vague. Are you? What's very vague? Spiritual. To be spiritual. Ooh. Oh, what you had said about your statement. But yes, it's very vague. A lot of these religions like to be vague. They need to be vague because if you pinpoint them, if you hold them down to a point, that point has to last for generations and generations, regardless of culture, in order for it to validate itself to last longer than whatever short season that it should have lasted. Like Judaism always maintained this small. It's really not a large religion. Judaism is actually uh, more of a smaller, medium-sized religion, uh, because it's centered on a small group of people, like most religions are. Islam expanded greatly and forced a whole bunch of people into it, and so did Christianity. That's why it's bigger. Hinduism stayed relatively in this area. So did Buddhism. They're starting to spread more, but they were intended for those people. It was intended for those people and those people only. And then, the problem with like Hebrew Israelites trying to claim that we are all the Black Americans are from there because of one verse that's mistranslated. But yeah, that vagueness, you got to keep it vague. If you want to have a long lasting good religion, make that shit vague. good to go. Whew. Sun burned my toes. Let's see if I can find a shadow to hide my feet under. But yeah, keep it vague. Keep it vague if you want to keep a religion. The more specific you are, the more people can attack it. I don't know if these little bees out here trying to get their last harvest or something. But they out here. Like, you gotta get our last harvest. Before the time is up. So, but yeah, it's been it's interesting. I know I'm gonna have to shoot that video. You gotta remember that about Groundhog Day. And see, I already forgot what the other thing was about. Oh, sacrifice. That it wasn't a real sacrifice. Gotta keep that thought. But we're gonna get ready to get out of here because, as y'all can see, the sun is making its approach. It got a little bit of a branch left before it's gonna be right on top of a brother. And then I'm gonna go inside, eat me some lunch. By the time I finish eating lunch and maybe watch a couple of episodes of this show that Angelina got me hooked on for a second, I come out and shoot these other videos. Because the sun would have been unmoved and it'd be behind that tree. But I had a great time. I appreciate you guys and all the comments. Please continue to share the videos, share the channel. The reason I'm able to be out here and give so much time to it now is because over these last 2 years, you guys have been sharing and growing the channel for me. And that's going to have to be the sustainable thing to allow me to continue to do this, is to continue to share it so we can keep growing it. Oh man, I don't have no more creamer. Angelina, can you pick me up some creamer on your way home? I greatly appreciate it. Because I'm not leaving the house before you get here. So that's the name of the game. Keep it shrouded in mystery so people don't find out what you're really hiding. Yeah. You gotta keep it. When we going to do the Pizzo family? Hold that thought for a second. And then I'm getting off here for real. Four days ago, Norman, that's when we did the Pizzo family. So 4 days ago. You can go check that out. Today's Tuesday? So that was Friday. So Friday's live we did the Pizzo Flavians Create Christianity. What are you on? You're on Facebook. So you can either look it up on Facebook or you can go to my YouTube, which my YouTube is Lorenzo Reed. Oh, you already got it? Thank you. I appreciate it. It'd be easier. That's my YouTube channel, Norman. So you can go there and you can watch it. You can still comment. I even told you I was going to do it on Friday because I remember saying that I was going to do it on Friday. But yeah, so we already did that one. Oh, see, don't let that cloud fool y'all. See, that cloud is trying to fool me. See, now if I was Christian, I would say that, see, God knew that the sun was going to be too hot for this air spot right now as the sun came into this little gap of trees. But he gave you, and it'd be too hot for your laptop and everything out here and for yourself. And so he put the cloud right there to block it so that you can continue to enlighten the people. And that's why that cloud is right there. If I was one of them Christians, I would be saying that. I'd be saying that, right? I'd be saying that right now. I'm going to show y'all. Right? That's what I be saying. Like, you see how there's a gap in the tree line and the sun. Oh, there you go. It's just came off of that branch that's hanging over. That's at the top of your screen. But that cloud came right on time to block it out. Ain't God good? But no, I'm still getting off because I'm hungry. Oh, but that's exactly what a Christian would say, and that's a big old cloud too, because I can see how far it goes. Uh, and well, actually, let's see, it's going that way, so all of that, there's even more cloud because the angle that it's going to go, that's probably a good little few. But anyway, gotta go. I'm hungry. So y'all have a great day. I'll shoot a couple more videos today. Definitely gonna shoot one about that sacrifice thing. I'm gonna eat and watch a TV show real quick, so that this sun will be over there by them trees by the time I come back out. So y'all have a great day. Remember, always you gotta free yourself to be yourself because your greatness is non-negotiable. Good journey, good vibrations, and I will see y'all on video Memorex and tomorrow. Oh yeah, tomorrow is Wednesday, so I see you guys tomorrow around 10.